Welcome back to the episode of the Boys on the Bench podcast. We are your host. I am DJ Riley, and alongside me, as always, is my brother Dalton Riley and lifelong friend Nathan Eastwood. Now, if you are tuning into this episode, it's probably because you are interested in running back 2's that are going to probably try to carry your fantasy football team this year, and that's what we will be breaking down. We do have 4 of these players for you, and this running back 2 position for you, a lot of people are sometimes confused because if you look at the typical fantasy football format, you're most likely in a 2 running back league, or you're either in a 1 running back league with a heavy flex. So looking at 2 to 3 flex positions on your starting lineup. So those running back positions are very, very valuable outside of your hero running back that you take. And so that's what we are going to be breaking down as we're looking at these running back 2's, players that are currently projected anywhere from 13 to 24 and are going to provide value to your team every single week. So anyways, let's go ahead and let's get this episode started. And the first player that we are going to talk about is Joe Mixon. Currently, Joe Mixon has an overall ADP of 36. So that does put him at the end of the 3rd round, going into the 4th round, if you are in a 12-team league. Now, where he's at a running back is 15. So that kind of puts him in that running back 2 category. So looking at how his strength of schedule lays out, currently he has the 21st easiest strength of schedule, which is why he's in the AFC North. That is kind of a little bit of a difficult division to be playing in. They have the Steelers, they have the Ravens, and they have the Browns. But Joe Mixon has played in this division for quite a while, and he has been very valuable year in and year out. So if we looked at last year how he finished, he did finish. He had a top 10 running back finish last year. He was number 10, so very good season last year. Now, the thing with Joe Mixon, though, is even last year, him having a top 10 finish, if we do remember, he didn't play in roughly 4 games because that 4th game that he played in was the Damar Hamlin game with the Bills. So that game did get cut short, and he still found a way to be productive and finish 10th in PPR. I know that there's a lot of issues and concerns that people had and the question marks that were surrounding Joe Mixon coming into this year with contractual issues and everything else. They did get that figured out, and now he is good to go. Is a good sign for him in his fantasy production. And if we look at how he did last season as well, last year, he finished 6th in touches per game. He had 19.5 touches per game, which is, again, probably one of the most valuable things to look at when you are looking to take a running back in fantasy, is how many touches are they getting a game? What is their volume? The next thing that's valuable when you're looking at a running back is their red zone opportunities. And if we look at Joe Mixon's red zone opportunities, we see that he actually ranked 2nd in the league with rushes inside the 10 at 28. So I know that when we think of the Bengals, the first thing that we think of is Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. But Joe Mixon is a very valuable running back, and he is going to continue to be that type of running back. We saw, again, like I said, he was willing to take a pay cut. He knows that his best chance at getting to the Super Bowl is probably to remain with the Bengals, and I think that that was a wise choice for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you bring up the fact that he missed, 4 games last season?
3 to 4, yeah.
3, so we'll say 4. All right,
yeah.
So if he missed 4 games with the Bengals last season, finished as running back number 10 in fantasy, you can arguably say that he probably could have finished top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually super impressive with a pass-happy offense. But you mentioned he was one of the highest in red zone touches and looks. So basically what I'm hearing is as much as pass happy as that offense is, they still try to get Joe Mixon involved. So that's good. You know, a lot of people pass up on Joe Mixon because they feel like other running backs get more opportunities. Well, with the stat line and the statistics that DJ just told us, that's pretty impressive for a team that claiming to be very, very pass happy, with including the weapons that they have at wide receiver. So the fact that they still try to get Joe Mixon the ball, and the fact that he can put up those numbers and the opportunities that he's given, they're gonna, if he's producing, they're still gonna give it to him. So yeah, I like it. That's impressive to me. That's impressive.
And to your point on the pass happy offense that the Bengals are, I don't see that changing, and they are very much pass happy. But I think that that's also where, if we look at Joe Mixon's receiving numbers from last year,
that's a plus.
Yeah, he had a career high in terms of targets at 70, also career high at receptions with 60, and then also a career high at yards with 441. So he's been valuing not only we've always known him as a runner, but now we also see him starting to add and develop as a pass catcher as well, which is what exactly you need as a running back. So the fact that, again, he is going as the 15th running back in fantasy drafts right now is absurd, especially in PPR formats.
Look, yeah, I absolutely agree with both of you guys. And that's one thing, like you said, like looking for a fantasy running back, especially our RB2 and any running back in that sense, is you're looking for someone that gets a lot of volume, someone that's going to get work. And Joe Mixon's getting that, and like you were saying, DJ, to kind of back you up on that, Joe Mixon gets the looks from Joe Burrow. I mean, he's getting those looks in the backfield. He's averaging 5 to 6 catches per game. And so that's actually pretty good numbers for a running back, especially for PPR. I mean, that's almost a touchdown per game that's guaranteed just through catches. And that's not including yards after the catch. So that's pretty good to have a running back, that can do that. And then also be able to run between the tackles. So he's definitely very good. The only concern I have is Chase Brown coming in as a 5th round rookie. 5th round doesn't have me too worried because it shows to me that the Browns weren't like heavily in need of a running back and trying to make big moves. I know there was some speculation that he was going to be out of town soon and were they going to trade Joe Mixon, but I think they never were, especially drafting a running back that late. They did get a good one, though, in Chase Brown that late. But, again, I'm not worried. Joe Mixon, I think it's his to lose.
But Brown doesn't worry me as a draft pick because I think that if we look at last year, Samaje Perine was probably going to be a lot more productive than Brown is going to be his rookie season. And I don't know if Brown comes in and puts up the numbers that Perine put up, because if we look at how Perine did last year, 214 routes run, which was 24th. So again, that's RB2 running back 2 numbers in terms of routes run at the running back position, which led to 51 targets, 38 receptions, and just shy of 300 yards. All of those ranked roughly top 20 at the running back position. Some of them a little bit off at either 22 to 24, but roughly we can say that all of those ranked top 20. So I don't know if Chase Brown comes in and replaces those numbers. If he doesn't replace those numbers, which I highly doubt, that only means that Joe Mixon's opportunities at routes run, targets, receptions, yards, receiving touchdowns has even more of an opportunity to go up, which adds to his value, where we saw, again, he finished as a running back 10 last year. So, I mean,
it's like Austin Eckler on steroids.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Austin Eckler's already roided up, so I don't know if you'll ever see any type of production like that. And I mean, if there is, I mean, even if you see something similar to that, I mean, he has a really good shot at finishing top 5. Definitely not 15 at where he's at. So I don't know. But then we also saw Cincinnati added star tackle Orlando Brown on a 4-year, $64 million contract. So I think that obviously they've been committed to protecting Joe Burrow, but also with that, Orlando Brown is an awesome prospect, and Joe Mixon's bound to profit from that as well. But we will move on to the next guy, and the next guy on this list is kind of not a new face, but he is a new running back 1, and it is the running back out of Minnesota, Alexander Mattison.
Yes, I like this. Okay, I put this guy on the list because he is. When you talk about running back 2s that can carry your team, this guy is a sleeper running back 2 who is a running back 1 on the Minnesota Vikings. One thing we got to understand is Dalvin Cook is out. He is out of Minnesota. And it opens up the door for Alexander Mattison. He is 53 at an ADP right now, but the one thing that catches my eye is that his strength of schedule is 3rd easiest. He had 5 touchdowns last year as a backup running back. I fully expect his yards were extremely low. I don't think he broke 300, but then again, he was also backing up Dalvin Cook. But I mean, we're talking about a running back who got 5 touchdowns as a backup running back. Some running backs don't even get 5 touchdowns as a starting running back. But his red zone looks were probably far and few between because they had Dalvin Cook there. So I fully expect Alexander Mattison to have a pretty good year, and I expect his 5 touchdowns to skyrocket solely because Dalvin Cook's not there. And this is the Vikings are going to have to run the football. You can't throw every play. Well, they try to, it seems like. But I mean, Alexander Mattison has proven in games that Dalvin Cook has set out that he can be the guy there in Minnesota. So if you're really looking for a sleeper running back, I think Alexander Madison's your guy to go to, because now that Dalvin Cook's out of the picture, it's his time to shine, and he has to prove and kind of show why they moved on from Dalvin Cook, because they believe in Alexander Mattison. So he's really got to step up this year.
Yeah, Alexander Mattison, guys, I really like this. The cool thing about Alexander Mattison, though, is that he has proven that he can handle a workload. He's only handled more than 20 touches, maybe like 5 or 6 times in his career, I think. But every time he's averaged around 20 touches, he's also scored almost over 22 fantasy points per game. So he's showing that he can handle a big workload. But what I like about that, though, guys, is that he has low mileage. There's not very many running backs that are also young like Alexander Mattison that has low mileage and has shown that, hey, if you give me 20 touches, I'm going to produce. And so I really love that about Alexander Mattison. And so the guys behind him, they're like, if you're thinking he's going to be in a handcuff in this, there's no way. The guys behind him have not proven that they can be someone that can step up. Not yet. He doesn't have anyone that he's competing with. There are good running backs, but he's definitely the solidified RB1 there with Minnesota. So I'm really loving this.
Yeah, and if we look at, I don't want to say I'm very high on Alexander Mattison, but to compare him to Dalvin Cook and assume that he's going to pick up right where Dalvin Cook left off is a little absurd. Just because Dalvin Cook was such a stud, but they weren't willing to pay him the money because they had to, allocate that money elsewhere because there was a new offensive star on that team and Justin Jefferson. But I do expect the volume to be somewhat similar, and I do think that Alexander Mattison is going to be one of these players that his volume's not going to change too much from what Dalvin Cook saw last year. He's going to be someone that benefits from a solid pass game that forces defenses to open up the box. He's not going to face probably a ton of stacked boxes, which is so good for him because defenses are going to be focused more so on stopping the pass with Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and then Jordan Addison. So that's going to force defenses to go wide. Not a stacked box. Alexander Mattison is going to benefit from that. And even if we look at what Dalvin Cook had last year with 264 rush attempts, I mean, if he can get that at 264 or even 250, and we're talking just rush attempts, I think that he's easily looking at 300 touches this year. And that's crazy value for someone that, again, is going at 53 overall.
Well, let me ask you this. Last year, as a backup running back, Dalvin Cook, 5 touchdowns. This year, as a starter, are you taking the over or the under on 5 touchdowns?
Oh, I'm going way over. Way over.
I think he's a double-digit touchdown scorer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And receiving too, guys. He's a receiving back too. He can catch as well.
But he's big enough to be a power back too, though. He's not small.
No, he's not. He's going to be a great back for the Vikings. And also, guys, don't forget the Vikings are actually coming into this year as the offensive line is coming as a 10th best offensive line in the NFL. They have a good offensive line that's going to be in front of him. And also, like you said, there's some great pass catchers, and they have a decent quarterback with Kirk Cousins. So he actually has everything he needs to be a good running back in the NFL, especially for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Alexander Mattison do well, but again, as a Packers fan, it will be hard. So as long as Green Bay wins that
defense, well, how many games did the Vikings win in
one possession games? It was tough.
Yes,
it was tough.
What was it? 10 games they won in one possession games.
Yeah.
So
And
if you honestly think about it, like they're literally one possession away from having a 10-loss season last year.
And they do have. I do feel like to that point. I do feel like they have the team to where they have the ability to get ahead. So if they have the ability to get ahead and stay ahead, the person that values the most in offenses like that is obviously the running back, because you're trying to run clock and everything else in order to get ahead, chew clock, and stay ahead, right? So that's another added benefit that he potentially has. But if it's in the one possession games, I mean, again, we've even if not, the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell do a great job at using the running backs and making sure that they're involved. Now, I do think Dalvin Cook was generational talent, and we're hopeful that Alexander Mattison puts up similar numbers. But let's go ahead and let's move on to the next guy. And this guy is on a team staying in the NFC here. And it was a team that showed a lot of success in previous years, but then last year was kind of a little bit of a Debbie Downer. But quality dude, quality running back, still is. And that is Cam Akers for the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, so for Cam Akers and DJ, to that, I think that this is still going to be a very sorry team next year as well. But like you said, a very good quality running back and someone who's going to bring a lot of value to your fantasy team. He currently has the 59th ADP, which also puts him at the 23rd running back in the NFL. And I think he's going to far outproduce that, especially based on what we've seen near the tail end of the last season when he came in. He is ranked about in the middle of strength of schedule, so it's not like it's terribly hard or very easy. But he did finish running back 4 during the last 6 weeks of the season, like I was saying, and he averaged 20 touches per game during that span and went over 100 scrimmage yards 4 times during those 6 games. He played 100% of the snaps in last year's season finale. So to me, I feel like I've kind of forgotten about that Achilles injury. So I think that's in the past, and I think we've pretty much moved on from that. Also, one thing that does kind of worry me, unlike Alexander Mattison, though, is that the Rams have one of the worst O-lines in the NFL. In fact, ESPN analyst Mike Clay actually has them coming in as being the 30th ranked offensive line in the NFL. And they also have them coming in as dead last in defensive efficiency next year. But
that's what happens when you sell out to win a Super Bowl.
Exactly. And that's kind of what people are talking about. It's like, they do get their next first round pick next year, but it's been a long time coming, and look what happened. Was it worth the Super Bowl? So yeah, many people would say yes. I mean, a Super Bowl is a Super Bowl, but now they're in a heap of trouble. So, but unlike that, though, I still feel like having Stafford and Cooper Kupp returning next year, I feel like that's going to help mitigate some of that offensive line woes, because they're still going to have to respect the passing game. And I think it's still going to be able to help them, with Cam Akers, because they were still in the same bubble last year. And Cam Akers was absolutely on fire the last 6 games. So he's shown that he can still be capable on a very, crappy team. And so he's been able to produce. And so I'm not worried about it. They also only added 1 running back in this year's draft in the 6th round, which is Zach Evans. And so I'm not too worried about that. That doesn't fear me at all. I still think this is Cam Akers' team to lose, his position to lose. So not worried about it. He's still incredibly young, and he's in his contract year, which is huge for me because, guys, there's nothing better than finding a fantasy asset for your team that's in their final year of their rookie contract. I mean, they have something to prove. And so this, I'm not worried about it. He's going to come in. Cam Akers is going to completely set the NFL on fire. He's going to be a great running back. And so I think his floor is RB2, but I think he could definitely be capable of being your RB1. So
yeah. You brought up Zach Evans. Y'all remember watching him play in the state championship game against Duncanville? Y'all remember that freaking Hail Mary? Do y'all remember that?
I do.
With like 1 second left, a 65-yard Hail Mary. Incredible. One of the greatest high school football games I've probably ever been to. It was nuts.
Yeah.
That game was nuts.
That game was crazy. But
yeah,
back to
back to that. I like Cam Akers based on what he showed towards the end of the year last year. I'm concerned on the relationship that he has with the Rams. Ever since he's been in the NFL, it's been rocky. He requested a trade last year, wanted out of town, I wanted out of Dodge, and they did not trade him.
And he was benched week one.
Benched week one. Yep. And then comes the last 4 games, and Dalton says top 4 running back in fantasy football. So we've seen spurts of Cam Akers be really good, and then the spurts of being benched, requesting a trade. So I think it's a good pick if the Rams let him be the running back 1 for the full season. I want to see him play a full season, like no drama, nothing. Just go out there and play football. Is this the year to do it? Yes, this probably is the year to do it. Now that there's not, it's not a crowded running back room, but for a running back too, why not? Draft him, see what you can do here, and if he can get a whole year and play a whole year like he did the last 4 games of last season, solid pick. Great running back and a great addition to have on your team there. So I think the talent's there. He's good enough to be a solid running back in the NFL. I just get a little nervous just because of the relationships with the Rams he's had his career there. It just makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm not going to – those are good points too. But I'm not going to draft based on a relationship to the team because I think his production is still going to show. And even if they do trade him, he's still going to be a good RB1 though.
You're going to draft a running back who got hurt? DJ, did hell freeze over?
Right.
Dalton's telling me he's going to draft a running back who had an injury?
Okay, but this is different because y'all have to remember when we started up our dynasty league, I took Cam Akers number 2 overall. Did I not, DJ?
No, not 2 overall.
No. It was
the second
like
running
10th.
back. You took him as RB2 for you.
My second overall for my pick.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I took him in the early second round.
Yeah.
And so I was high hopes on this guy. So I still have him. That's why I'm still for him because I haven't traded him. This is still an investment for me because how young he is. So Nathan, you're right. I usually don't go for injured running backs. But to me, this is different because I can't get rid of him. Because he did show to me last year within those 6 games, this dude is crazy good. But not only that, dude, he's cheaper than guys like Dalvin Cook and Mixon and Khalil Herbert and Tyler Algier. And I think Akers has more short-term and long-term upside than all those guys anyway, too. And that being said, unless they sign a veteran running back, I'm all in on him because I think he's going to be a solid RB2 for me.
Totally. And I think what you're saying with that too is, I know you have a little bit of an internal bias, but if we're talking at redraft leagues and telling people that the value that they have in these redraft leagues, Cam Akers fits this mold because he totally has the ability to be the running back too. He's being drafted as the running back 23, right? So that's the back end of RB2s for teams. But with that means that he is going at 60th overall roughly. So that's after the first 5 rounds. So if you go running back first round and then wide receiver, maybe one of the top tight ends, and then you get running back 2 and Cam Akers and the top 5 rounds, you are bound to have a very successful fantasy season. And that is honestly what makes Cam Akers so interesting. And to your point, Dalton, as well, is to this, who is he competing with, right? He's due for a ton of volume. And that's, again, all that we look for is what touches can we get? What is the number of touches that we can get? Because if you're not getting the number of touches, then you're likely not to do that good in fantasy, right? I know that there's a couple people like the Saquon Barkleys. I know Saquon Barkley gets a ton of touches, but he's been in a pretty bad New York Giants offense that he's still been able to produce top 10 numbers frequently. And not every running back can do that. So I think Saquon Barkley is in a very different situation. But Cam Akers, on the other hand, he has the ability to have a ton of volume, which is very, very, very good because honestly, outside of Cooper Kupp, I think that the next best option is Cam Akers. You got Van Jefferson and Ben Skoranek. I think Cam Akers is the next best option after Cooper Kupp. I don't think Tyler
If
Higbee
that
is
doesn't
that.
sound like a Matthew Stafford offense, I don't know what does.
No, honestly, he probably feels like he's
Dude,
a little
I'm
bit in
telling you.
Detroit. Honestly, has
Like,
the Megatron and
Yeah.
Cooper Cup, and then
Cooper
outside of
Kupp.
that, it's just like, God dog, dude, come on, man.
He's going and talking to McVay today, like, bro, I left this shit. I want to back in this shit.
Dude, honestly though, although the Rams won the Super Bowl, I still think the Lions won that draft. I still can't get over it. I mean, you gave up a Super Bowl. You pretty much handed it to the Rams, but overall, long term,
Bro,
I think the Lions won this.
Could you imagine if they wouldn't have done that and stuck with Stafford and then had the team that they had
They
with
would.
Stafford?
They would no. They wouldn't be where they. I think he's still better than Jared Goff, but they still wouldn't have the pieces they have around Jared Goff if they didn't.
Well,
It is-
I
but I mean,
they
if you're-
probably would. They would have probably gotten Gibbs.
Maybe,
yeah,
but
I don't know
they
about
still
Penei
wouldn't-
Sewell, the tackle. I don't know if they would have still had him or not. But I mean, regardless,
yeah.
Stafford. I think
Or
Stafford or Hutchinson. Yeah, I think Stafford though is probably looking back and is like, man, if I could swap teams today, I'd probably
Go
back to
want
the
to be back in
Lions.
the Motor
Damn.
City.
Why
Yeah.
couldn't the Lions give me that? Fuck.
Yeah,
No
honestly.
kidding.
But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the final guy on this list. And again, we're staying in this NFC. So we're going to the NFC South, though. And this is on the team that, won the NFC South. Didn't have a double-digit win season, but they managed with TB12 to get into the playoffs. But anyways, that is Rachaad White, running back. He currently has an overall ADP of 63, making him the running back number 21. Now, again, he plays in the NFC South. That means that he has the 12th easiest strength of schedule. I think that we've talked plenty about how bad the NFC South is, so I don't want to delve into that too much here. Now, if we look at how he did last year, right, we know that he wasn't highly efficient as a runner. And I don't think that that was more so to Rachaad White as an individual, but more so to Tampa Bay's line. And if we look at how that offense is ran and how Tom Brady runs his offenses, it's quick passes and runs. And that's kind of it. Maybe a little bit of drop
Tom
back.
Bowles sucks.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's just, I think he's just highly inconsistent. So, but I mean, they did find a good way to get running backs. I know that they only had 5 rushing touchdowns total for Tampa Bay, but if we look at how Rachaad White did throughout the season, going into last season, Leonard Fournette was clearly the guy. But then as the season progressed, we saw Leonard Fournette's production go down, his snap count go down. The person that benefited from that was Rachaad White. They saw the potential that they had in him, and we saw his production go up. But going back to the offensive line that they had, they finished roughly, I think, 29-28, the bottom 20, the bottom 5 of offensive lines last year. They were not good by any means. They do have some good pieces in their tackles. But we also saw that this year in the draft, they did draft the guard or tackle. He was a tackle, but he will be playing guard for Tampa Bay out of North Dakota State in the second round. So that gives this group some promising talent with Wirfs, the other tackle. I'm forgetting his name, but then also this Cody Malk guy. So second round, so they are
That
investing.
dude's a stud.
Yeah, missing your 2 front
Dude is a
teeth.
stud.
He is embracing just. I mean, every part of just. I don't even know, man.
Being a redneck in the NFL.
Yeah.
Dude,
he's
loving
living it up. He's living it up. But
I like Rachaad White though. DJ made good points with Fournette being out, and you bring in a guy like Baker Mayfield, who, I mean, he's got a good wide receiving room. He does, yeah. And then with Leonard Fournette out, now Rachaad White is the guy there in Tampa Bay, and they're not going to be a run happy nor pass happy. I think they're kind of just going to be like in between. They're going to do what they need to do to stay in games. But I can see Rachaad White being pretty productive in the running game, but being also super productive in the pass game. So I like this as a running back too on your team, just because he is the number one guy, and you just don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do on offense. You don't know how heavy they're going to be in the pass game. You don't know how heavy they're going to be in the run game. And the potential is there for him to get points in a lot of them. So
I can tell you that
they're
not going to be as heavy as they have been in previous seasons because Tom Brady the last 2 seasons finished.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he finished first in total pass attempts the last 2 seasons. Baker Mayfield does not do that. I think Tom Brady was sitting just shy of 750 both seasons. I think Baker is probably going to sit 600, maybe a little over 600. But I know that that's where a lot of people's concerns are with Rachaad White. They're saying Tampa Bay is missing out on Tom Brady and they are moving on to Baker Mayfield. So the efficiency is not going to be there. The volume is not going to be there, right? Because if we look at the receiving game, I think it's safe to say that Rachaad White is probably the third option in terms of receiving with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Then Rachaad White is probably number 3 as the check down option. So yeah, I understand
I think Bruce Arians is coaching up Baker Mayfield, though. There's no way Todd Bowles is doing anything there. There's got to be Bruce Arians.
Yes, I could see that. But even then, I think that regardless, they do a solid job of getting their running backs involved. And Rachaad White is going to do that because even last year as a running back 2 for Tampa Bay, we saw Rachaad White have 50 receptions. That was 11th for running backs last year. So, I feel like his production isn't going to fare too much from that. I know that people are saying, well, he had 50 receptions, but that's because Tom Brady was at the quarterback position and he threw so much, right? So I think 50 receptions is not hard to hit. So now you are dependent upon, his rush games and his touchdowns. Tampa Bay last year, like I said earlier, they only had 5 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. That number is going to be very easy to hit for this Tampa Bay offense, and I think that he should do fine hitting that. So I like him, and then also what we've been talking about with other running backs is he doesn't honestly have a ton of competition because after him, they just brought in Chase Edmonds, who we saw serve a season with the Miami Dolphins, and he was really honestly an afterthought, and there was not really anything to him. But then also Keyshawn Vaughn, they kind of had a trial period with Keyshawn Vaughn in that Tampa Bay offense and not good. And then they just got the rookie Sean Tucker. So the competition is not there. I think Rachaad White is going to eat up anywhere from 70 to 80% of the snaps on that offense. So I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, guys, I absolutely agree with both of you. I really love Rachaad White. One thing I really like about him, though, is, he's not as efficient as a runner as we would like him to be, but it's how much he receives, how much of a catchback he is. Guys, he was a sponge for dump-offs. Also granted to what we were saying, Tom Brady is notorious for just throwing it to his running backs, all the time. And so he kind of benefited from that. But, guys, let me read this to you. He went 5 for 5, 4 for 3, 4 for 3, 3 for 3, 3 for 3, 9 for 9, 8 for 6, 5 for 5, 4 for 4. Guys, it's ridiculous. He caught almost practically every pass thrown to him. So if I'm looking at that, guys, as a PPR league, that's easy money. Easy money. And so not only that, guys, we're not even talking about, like I said with Joe Mixon, we're not even talking about the yards after the catch either. And so, speaking of the last 7 or 8 games of the season, he was averaging also 10 to 12 rushing attempts per game on top of that. So, guys, I love that as an RB2. It's not really the RB1 production I'm looking for, but it's telling me as an RB2, I know that what I like is consistency, and he's all about the consistency. To me, he's one of the most consistent running backs in the league, and I like that as a year 1 running back. So he's coming into his year 2. I love it.
Yeah, and I don't think that you'll be drafting Rachaad White necessarily to be a running back 1 on your team. I think that is a long shot considering all of the changes that are going on in Tampa Bay with their offensive line. I know that Wirfs I think he was a right tackle last year, and I saw that where they're moving Wirfs to the left tackle. and then they're now making a guard who is a very promising prospect. And again, I'm forgetting his name, but they're moving him to right tackle so that way they can use this new rookie, Cody Mark, or Mock, however you want to say his name. It's hard for me to pronounce, but they're going to move him to guard. That's where they intend on using him because of his size. So anyways, I mean, I don't think that offensive line finishes in the top 20, but exactly though, it's the volume, and that's exactly what you want. And especially if you're looking at a PPR or even half point PPR, is the receptions, the targets, and that's exactly what he's going to get. So I'm excited about all 4 of these players that we've picked, and I think that, again, they are going to produce greatly for your fantasy teams this year. So anyways, this has concluded this part of the episode, and we are going to move on to a fan favorite, which is called Bench Banter. Now, if you don't know what Bench Banter is, and this is your first episode that you're listening to, all Bench Banter is it is a trivia style game where Nathan is the dealer, and then me and Dalton will be working together, putting our brotherly minds alike to see if we can answer these absurd off-the-wall questions. Now, Nathan will give us a hint on these questions, and again, it's mainly because they're off the wall. Sometimes it's a 4-parter. I don't know. Nathan kind of makes up his rules with this, and me and Dalton just go with the flow. I don't know. But anyways, let's go ahead and get this kicked off. It's 3 questions. It's a best of 3 format.
All right, y'all ready? Question number 1. Name me a Florida Gators running back that has rushed for over 1,000 yards in an NFL season.
Florida Gators.
That has rushed for how far?
1,000 yards in an NFL season.
In an NFL season. So you're talking like what's a hint? Is it like a Cowboys hint?
He played in the NFC.
So like an Emmitt Smith or?
God damn it!
Nice. Man,
sorry, I didn't mean to say GD there. I apologize. Dang it,
Ronnie. Because I kept thinking Ronnie Williams, but that's Miami Dolphins.
Yeah,
not even the Florida Gators, and I could not get that man out of my head.
Honestly,
so
I couldn't even name another Gators running back.
No,
couldn't do it.
No,
dang.
I'm glad you came in with him.
GD, I didn't mean to say that.
I knew it had to have been like a Cowboys thing for Nathan. Nathan, you almost make it too easy on him.
But we say that all the time. We always say that. We say that all the time with the Cowboys, and then Nathan is like,
but this is the first time. This is the first time it's ever been like a true Cowboys.
No, I agree. That's what I was saying. It's like we always like
Dalton
Nathan
says it
Nathan
every episode.
Yeah. And it's like,
is it a Cowboys thing? That's what Dalton. Is it a fucking?
I mean, it's a safe assumption. It's a safe assumption.
True though. It is. It's very safe. It's very
this
safe.
time it worked out.
Cowboys. It's Cowboys with the Longhorns.
Nathan tried to catch us off guard.
Cowboys with the Longhorns. I did. I tried. It did not work. Question number 2: what city did the Redskins play in before they moved to Washington?
Ooh,
city. All right. Give us the geographical. That's even the right word. Location: north, east, south, or west.
North of the Mason-Dixon.
Where's the Mississippi? Is that like Oklahoma?
Dalton's Googling the Mason-Dixon line right
I am.
How do y'all not know where the Mason-Dixon line is?
And
we are about to Mason-Dixon. It's right in between Pennsylvania and cuts off West Virginia and Maryland.
Yes.
Our fans who know what the Mason-Dixon is probably like, what the hell? Like,
what is this channel?
We're
fantasy football. We're fantasy football. That's all. We're not
Have you heard of
history
the Red
buffs.
River Showdown? Like, that's what we're here about in Texas. Like, that's about it. Like, we don't know what the Mason-Dixon is. We got the Red River.
Nathan does,
That's about
allegedly. So he's north of Pennsylvania.
It is north of the Mason-Dixon.
I did have to look that up.
All right. Okay. Now, read me the question again. Now that we know it's north of
what city did the Redskins play in before they moved to Washington?
North, so it's Pennsylvania north of that.
What city? Man, we should have said like the state.
So it's yeah.
That
so
would
it's
have given it away. That would have given it away for sure. Would have given it away.
Nathan, this better be north of this Mason-Dixon, or you're gonna look like an idiot.
Be like the Florida Panthers. They played in Florida.
Man, I don't
Kentucky.
I don't know. Tennessee? Is that north? Dalton?
That's totally south of the Mason-Dixon, dumbass.
I don't even know really. I mean, Pennsylvania I know is East Coast kind of.
Bro.
Dalton, I think you're kind of on your own with that.
He literally just said, Nathan, you better hope that's north of the Mason-Dixon, and then went and said Tennessee.
The thing is, I didn't see the map. Dalton looked up the map. I don't even know where this is at.
How the hell
All
did
right.
you get a college degree and not know where the Mason-Dixon is?
We didn't spend a lot of time looking at maps. I'll tell you that much.
Holy shit.
See, I don't think.
Yeah, so my history teacher was a coach. So
Yeah. Okay, Dalton, what are you thinking?
Aren't you a history major?
shut up, Nathan.
You had to Google it.
I didn't get my major in studies in the Mason-Dixon.
Geography. All right.
I was hoping no one to bring that up.
Oh man, dude.
All right, you got to throw a city out there.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, honestly, that or like Chicago. No, it can't be Chicago. No, Chicago Bears have been there since day one. Yeah, honestly. Crap, man.
Running out of time. Pick one, DJ. Pick one.
Detroit.
The correct answer is Boston.
Oh God, dude, I was gonna say that, but God,
That makes sense to have like the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Redskins.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Question number 3 for the win. Which NFL team was originally called the New York Titans?
I feel like Tennessee. That seems like too easy. That's not
It
my
was
answer,
definitely
though.
the Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
But that's crazy that another team would be called the New York Titans, and then you still have the Tennessee Titans. Like the Houston Oilers are like, oh, we like that. So
Well, you got to think because it was the Houston Oilers. There were no Titans. This team was the Titans.
I feel like if you're in the New York market, you don't go far from the New York market, you know? So I feel like it's either the Giants or the Jets. I don't think you get in such a big market of New York and then you're like, let's move. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point.
So I feel,
Well, I mean, you could though, because like
Nathan,
like Dalton.
he's
Nathan's
getting our
talking
mind.
us out of
Giants
it.
and Jets. Giants and Jets. That's our two guesses. Giants and Jets.
I'm going Giants.
I'm going Jets.
Y'all sure?
Yep.
Are you
100%.
sure? I'll give you one more chance to change it.
Did you even give us
Nathan
a hint?
always does
Give us a
that.
hint.
He
Nathan.
always-
Give us a hint, though. Give us a hint.
It's an AFC team.
Okay, well, that could either have been the Jets or the Giants. You going either way. Give us a different hint. That doesn't help us.
That's your hint.
All right, Jets and Giants it is, baby.
That's incorrect.
Damn.
What's the other team in New York, DJ?
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
I'm kidding. The correct answer is the New York Jets.
Let's go. We knew it. Let's go, baby.
Right
You honestly had me
on.
worried. Then I'm like, damn, who would have moved out of New York?
Seattle.
It was a good question because like when you said who would move out of New York, because like the city has already have two teams. Like who would leave New York City? Buffalo.
That is true. Yeah.
Like you would leave New York City to go to Buffalo.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good one. But nonetheless, I mean, me and Dalton won, so we'll take that as always. So anyways, thank y'all so much for listening to this episode, and hopefully our fantasy value or our fantasy insight provides some sort of value to you and puts you one step closer to getting to your fantasy championships this year. But anyways, thank y'all again so much. If you're looking to get connected through us, we always say go to our website at boysonthebench.com. We did put some apparel on there. We do have some shirts, some hats. The boys are repping it. I am one of the boys not repping it. I do have it. I don't have it on. But it's great gear. So by all means, y'all go out there, check that out. And we would always love the support. Anyways, again, thank y'all so much. And we will see y'all next episode.